This is Got the Fix It Guy. Today we're dealing with the Thermador Bosch style oven that no longer heats up correctly. Either heats up too much or not enough. We're going to be changing this part, the thermostat, so that we can get the correct temperature again. So very important also for safety is to either unplug it or turn off the breaker. It's good also to turn off the gas supply. And this is the range we're going to be working on. So we're going to pull off the oven control. Take out a couple of these Phillips head screws. It's important we put all these screws together with the assembly that we removed so we can put them back on correctly. So zipping that off, and then this metal bezel will also come off to kind of pry it. So once you get that off, there's just a couple of screws that are holding on the oven, thermostat, and we just removed those. Now we're going to remove 3 screws from underneath. So we open the oven door. There's 3 Phillips head screws. They're holding on a trim piece. We got to get rid of that trim piece so we can get the front control panel removed. We're just going to spin off these 3 Phillips head. And then this trim piece will just wiggle right out. There we go. That exposes a few more screws on the bottom of the control panel that we have to remove. One on the left corner, one on the right. Also Phillips head. And they screw into a little clip. So you've got to be careful that clip doesn't come loose. It's kind of hard to put it back on. So we're just spinning off the right side. That one, and here's the little clip that it goes into. So it's better if you can just keep that clip where it is. It's a little bit easier to put it back together. Now we're going to spin the one off on the left. So we've got that off. Now we're going to remove these dials because they're actually holding on the front control panel at this time. On the left-hand side, there's a little indicator light that's connected to the control panel. You've got to be careful when you're removing the panel that you don't break that piece off. So now we're pulling the panel off slowly, and that just comes free. And then here is our thermostat. We're going to be removing this grate on the right-hand side. And then we're going to be removing this metal trim piece. Just lifts right off. Pull that off to the side. And we'll lift up on these burners so we expose the Venturi tube nut. And if you use some break free and then you use a socket set, you may be able to get these loose. In this case though, they did not come off. So I was able to feed the new thermostat sensor from the top down into the oven cavity. It's just basically below this Venturi I'm working on right now. There's a little hole, and that brings the thermostat down into the oven cavity. So I'm just going to leave these Venturi tubes alone, and I'm feeding that bulb in, which is in the front right corner, just underneath where my right hand is right now. So I'm going to just feed it in from that center opening, and then I can pull it through. So here I'm just taking a picture of the electrical connectors, make sure if they become disconnected I know where they go. Just pull those off, wiggle them off. Using some needle nose pliers helps. And now I've got the brand new thermostat I got the sensing bulb. I'm putting that through right next to the old one. So you have to unravel it when you get it out of the box and then straighten it and then just bring it on in to this area. And now I'm going to be putting the wires on the old one onto the new one. I'm just going to do them one by one so I don't get them mixed up. In this heavy looking brass wire coming out of the back of the thermostat, that's the sensing, it's hooked to the sensing bulb, and that goes down into the oven cavity. That's the one we were talking about where you have to feed it through. In the front right hand side there's a little hole that you can push the bulb down in, and then there's another hole in the oven cavity that it will go through. We'll be able to see that here in a minute. It's a lot better if you can remove those Venturi tubes, because then you have a nice clean shot for putting in the thermostat sensing bulb. I didn't have that, so I had to just take my time and kind of come in at a 45-degree angle to get that sensor bulb to go down through those two holes. Wasn't too bad though. So we have the old one removed. Just putting the last one of the wires on. Now we're pulling the old bulb out. There we go. And then I've pushed the new one down through the hole. You can see the end of it. Had to bend it a little bit to do that. Pulling that down through the hole. We can see up here. There we go, pulling that a little further. I want to bring it down through that hole to where I have about a foot worth of sensing bulb in the oven cavity. Just looking at the sensing bulb line. There we go. So we're just going to straighten this out. I had to bend it a little bit to get it to go through those holes, so I'm straightening it out. And then I'm going to put it in the bracket, so feed it through. And then there's just a couple of Phillips head screws we'll put back up there at the top. There's one. There's the other one. And then the bracket can just slide right in underneath those screws. That's just designed to hold that sensing bulb in the oven cavity so it can sense the temperature. So this kind of arrangement is true for a lot of these Thermador and Bosch oven models. Tighten that up. Alright, so that's probably the hardest part, is routing that sensing bulb into the oven cavity. So we got the front panel back on. Just tightening up the screws. We got the knobs back on. They just slide right on. So now we're putting that clip back on behind, this part goes on behind the control panel. There's a little piece of metal that clip goes onto, and then the screw goes through the control panel hole and then through into that clip. And the clip's kind of like a, basically acts like a nut to secure the threads of the sheet metal screw. A little bit hard to get that back on. You have to pry it open and slide it back over. Once you got it, you want to put a little pressure on the front of the control panel, and then you go ahead and put in the Phillips head screw. take your time. Hopefully though, when you remove the control panel, that clip won't come off and then you don't have to go through that extra step. So now we're going to put the door back on. We removed the door just to make it a little bit easier to get to the parts. So to put the door on, we're going to put the hinges in. Just take your time, make sure they slide all the way in. I'm coming in at about 45-degree angle. Line up both sides, push them in, and then go ahead and set the door down so it's at a 90-degree angle, and then you can slide the two little catches back toward the oven. So right now they were towards you, and you want to push them back toward the oven, and that basically locks the hinges into position. When you remove them, you just pull them towards you and they lock together, and then you can wiggle the door off. But we're just putting them back in, swiveling them toward the oven. Close the door. So we weren't able to take off those Venturi tubes, but we're just going to put those back together. Put the center trim piece back in. That's the way we got in there to push the sensing bulb through. But when you can remove those nuts, you're able to pull the burners off and pull the drip pan off, and you just have a really clear, easy access. That's the preferred way to go. Putting the burner caps back on, make sure they're sitting fully flat, and making sure the igniters are in the right position. And I'll put the grate back on. Go, and then we'll go ahead and turn on the oven, give it a test, make sure it gets to the right temperature. I'm also going to test the burners. I've got the power back on and got the gas back on. Burners are lighting good. Making sure the oven door is okay. That it's heating up, so it looks real good. Back to a fully functioning oven. Here it just shows you the wiring colors on the new thermostat in case they get mixed up. So thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe to our channel when you get a chance. Thanks again.